Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. We are presented, as always, by FullPressCoverage.com. Check out their website for this podcast, a bunch of other great podcasts and articles, and all sorts of great sports content. And you can find us wherever podcasts are found, or find our YouTube and the visual presentation with Sap's headset and my tchotchkes all over youtube.com/jetstrategy. Do you know that word, Sap? I think it's a Yiddish word, tchotchkes.
No.
It
What
just
does
means
that
like
mean?
little knickknacks. It's the same as knickknack.
Okay, the Italian for that would be Gotzies.
Oh, okay. I like that one.
Yeah,
Gutsies.
like I
But yeah,
got Gotzies hanging
tchotchkes.
around.
I think it's,
Tchotchkes.
you grow up hearing a word from your grandparents or stuff like that. You just assume it's in everybody's lexicon, but it's not. It's I guess it's a Yiddish word, but I didn't know that until I was like 30.
And then they try to Americanize it, and it sounds completely different. I mean, like my grandmother was the same way. They were like, she invented words that didn't exist. Like she couldn't remember what the Italian word for something was, so she'd use the English word and then throw like a vowel at the end of it. So
That's good.
blanket became like blanketto. So it was like, okay, we get it. We get it,
You had your own
Nani.
language. I like
Yeah,
that.
we had our
Blanketto.
own language. Blanketto. Yeah.
Little Johnny, get the blanketto.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there's, I guess I have some, because Yiddish was what my uh, great grandparents spoke because they're the ones who immigrated to this country. They didn't speak Hebrew
Hmm.
because a lot of people from the old countries spoke Yiddish, not Hebrew. Hebrew actually didn't become common again until Israel got refounded as a state.
Huh.
And Russian. They all spoke Russian too, but the Yiddish has a lot of little weird verbiage and sayings and stuff like that because it was the cultural language. And I think, like you said too, Sap, it became a little bit Americanized.
Hmm.
When you moved to New York, or where some of my great grandparents moved, came into Gloucester, and so you pick up some of the local lexicon. So yeah, I'll say words sometimes, and I remember this happened a lot in college because no one had ever met anybody from Jewish and be like, "What the hell are you talking about? What's that word mean? You might as well
Right.
be
Yeah.
speaking gibberish."
Yeah. We have our own language. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tchotchkes aside, and what's the Italian word you said?
Gotzies.
Tchotchkes and Gotzies aside, we have a play-in tournament to preview, Sap. The NBA instituted this last year in the bubble and said, you know what? We like this. We're going to stick with it. There's been some complaints, most notably from Mark Cuban and LeBron James. Mark Cuban's team managed to avoid it. LeBron James did not. But we're going to start with the Eastern Conference because those games are taking place today, Tuesday. And unfortunately for me, the Celtics are part of it, though I can't say they didn't deserve it. They fully deserve to be part of it. They are taking on the red hot Washington Wizards, Sap, in the 7 versus 8 matchup. And in the 9 and 10 in the East, it's the Pacers are the 9 seed and the Hornets are the 10. So that game will be in Indiana. And just in case you're not aware, the way this is going to work is the winner of the 7 versus 8 is the 7 seed, and the loser of that game then plays the winner of the 9-10 game for the right to be the 8 seed.
Hmm.
And just we'll go over the West in a second. The Lakers are the 7, the Warriors are the 8, the Grizzlies are the 9, the Spurs are 10. But the Eastern games are first. So, Sap, let's talk about the Celtics and Wizards one first, because we are in Boston. We follow the Celtics very closely. And I've been saying for months this was a position they were going to be in. It seemed inevitable. They decided to play their worst basketball down the stretch, which, that will get you into the play-in tournament. And they're playing a team that's playing their best basketball down the stretch. This is a one-off. How do you see it playing out?
Well, it would lead you to believe that Washington's going to come into TD Garden and win handily, right? If you just go through all of those scenarios where Washington has won 15 of their last 20. Russell Westbrook, since April 1st, is averaging 23, 13, and 13. That's his average for a month and a half. He's been phenomenal. Has set the all-time record for triple doubles, surpassing the great Oscar Robertson. The Celtics, meanwhile, are 4-9 over the last 13, 1-5
Ugh.
over their last 6.
With
They lost
losses
their
to the Cavs and the Thunder.
teams that were trying to lose. The Celtics managed to lose to them. Jalen Brown, their second best player, is out for the rest of the season. Robert Williams III, who is about as dependable as the green line, you don't know what the story is with him. He's probable for this game against Washington. You would just look at that and say Washington's going to win, and Washington's got two studs and Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. The Celtics have one in Jason Tatum.
Yeah, and we're not sure of the status of Beal yet.
Right. If he plays, he's going to be hobbled. I just get the feeling Russell Westbrook's not going to lose this game, right? He's playing possessed,
growing on you.
He normally does. No, again, I compared him to Allen Iverson. He's a spectacle. I don't know what it leads to, but I think it could lead to him beating this sorry ass Celtics team, in a play-in game. I think that he could do that. He's quite capable of going out and getting 30, 20, and 15. Like, would that shock you if Westbrook did that? Now, he may need to take 26 shots.
Oh, no, he'll put up a triple-double on them. He'll put up a triple-double on them.
In his sleep. It seems like he has them at halftime. The effort's going to be there from him while, is Grant Williams going to be playing a lot of minutes, and they're going to just be staring at Russell Westbrook, who's going to be running circles around them. You would think Washington will win this game. I want to see them win it because I want to see Washington against Brooklyn in the playoffs, because again, Brooklyn will beat Washington. They're far superior, but Russell Westbrook has so much hate for Kevin Durant, and I don't think he's really a fan of James Harden after they played together last year in Houston. I think he's probably buddies with Kyrie Irving, or maybe tolerates him. But Westbrook would go all nuclear on Brooklyn. I think that would be fascinating. Chances are Brooklyn wins that series in 5. Give Washington maybe one upset win when Russell Westbrook scares the hell out of everybody.
He could injure somebody on Brooklyn and really alter the trajectory of the.
Yeah, he could. Like, does he even care who wins the championship though, Westbrook? Unless it's him, he's not. Is he friendly with someone that he's going to take someone out? Is he friends with Giannis or whoever, someone on Philadelphia, and say, I'll help these guys out? Because he just is an intimidating guy for a guy who's only 6'3", because he plays so damn hard. So I would think Washington will win that game. Now, the Celtics won 2 of 3 games against Washington in the regular season. They haven't played since February 28th. So
one was by 1 point also.
Right. Just throw those out, because they haven't played, for 2.5 months. Washington's much better now than they were in February, and the Celtics are worse, and they don't have Jaylen Brown. So I would think Washington wins. That's the conventional narrative, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the one advantage, if you want to call it that, the Celtics have is the game is in Boston. Obviously, the capacity won't be 100%, though it has been cleared by the governor of Massachusetts to be 100% soon. So if the Celtics get out of this play-in, they might have a full house for a playoff game potentially.
Yeah, May 29th. They'd have to win probably. Yeah, I mean, if they got into the playoffs and got to a game 6, that might be right around there.
Tall task for this Celtics team.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it.
I would agree with you, Sap, that I think Washington will win that game based off of, one, I don't think the Celtics want to be there anymore. I think the Wizards desperately want to get out of this and get into the playoffs, even if it means, getting trounced by Brooklyn. I do think that they have more motivation. I think their younger guys are also more into it. Some of these Celtics younger guys, if they've been to the playoffs, Robert Williams has played in the playoffs. Grant Williams has played in the playoffs. Romeo Langford should have, but he was hurt all last year. And the Wizards have, guys like Hachimura and the kid from Israel, Denny Avia, who haven't had any taste of playoffs before. So maybe they'll be more motivated too. Like you said, Westbrook's going to get up for any game. If Bradley Beal plays, I think he put up 40 plus a couple times in the Celtics this year already. So they have no answer for him. So yeah, I would, if I had to guess, I'd say the Wizards win. Fortunately for the Celtics, I do think that whoever wins in that Pacers Hornets game are both those teams suck. I don't find either of them particularly impressive, and they'd have to play in Boston. Boston hosts no matter what.
Right.
So we'll say Wizards will win that game. Let's look at the other one, Sap. Pacers Hornets. Again, neither of these teams, they're all fodder for whoever the hell else they play if they get out of it. Does either one of these teams have a distinct advantage over the other one in your opinion?
Not really, other than the game is going to be played at Indiana, and the Pacers are 5-7 over their last 12. Charlotte has lost their last 5. They're 3-9 over their last 12. So neither team is exactly rolling into the play-in tournament, right? So is home court advantage just enough? When I look at these types of matchups, when it's a 1-game play-in, I'm going to try to see who's the best player on the floor. And in this case, I don't even know where you go with this. I mean, Gordon Hayward probably not going to play.
Yeah, no, they just ruled him out today.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he plays Thursday if Charlotte beats Indiana and then has to come to Boston for the 8-seeded game. But that's
what
looking
is he
too far ahead.
And what is he at that point?
At that point, he's, Gordon Hayward, who gets hurt a lot. Terry Rozier, is he their best player because LaMelo Ball's working his way back from an injury? And then Indiana, I mean, will Sabonis be the best player on the court that night?
Probably.
Because he's he's an all-star. He may have been the worst all-star, but he's had a nice year. So you would think Indiana's at home, but they're kind of, rebelling against their coach.
Yeah, so they hate their coach.
They hate their coach. So this is where the play-in tournament looks silly, because really the only team out of these three that looks like they're gearing up for the playoffs is Washington. The other three,
the only one that looks like they want to be there.
Right. The other three look like, let's get this over with. Like, do we really want to go lose to Philly or Brooklyn, like get wiped out? Washington, I think, would be motivated to just face Brooklyn.
I think they think they can beat them.
Well, Westbrook does, sure. Yeah. And
they can't, but he thinks so.
But he thinks he could beat, the Western Conference All-Star team by himself, which makes him a unique player.
So right? Who are you going to take in that Indiana game then, Sep?
I'll take Indiana. And then I think they'll come here and the Celtics will beat them. I think the Celtics will be the 8th seed, and then they'll play Philadelphia, which could be somewhat interesting only because I know the Celtics beat them 2 out of the last 3 years in the playoffs. I believe they're 8-1 in the postseason against Philadelphia, those 2 series. But that Philadelphia team's nowhere near as good as this Philadelphia team. And certainly this Celtics team is nowhere near as good as the Philly team that the Celtics beat twice. So, I mean, Philly would beat the Celtics probably in 5 games. Always throw one game in there.
They might sweep them.
Oh, they might sweep them, but Philly is still as good as they've been. They're the number 1 seed in the East. They seem flawed to me, and they also look like there may be games where they're not there. Because Embiid, as great as he is, he's not exactly the guy you can count on every single game. You can count on him a lot, and when you can count on him, he's unstoppable. But yeah, you get my point. I mean, would it be okay if the Celtics lose to Philly in the second round? I guess it's whatever. I mean, it's probably better they lose both games and get into the lottery. And
that's what's best for them. It is, especially without having Jaylen Brown, they don't even have a puncher's chance in any of these things. So what's best for them, and I said this in I think on Friday when we did our show, Sap, for twofold. One, okay, the lottery, it's extremely long odds, but at least you're in the lottery, so you have a chance at it. And 2, the utter stink and failure and humiliation of not qualifying for the playoffs, I think would force some big change, as opposed to saying, oh, Jaylen Brown was out. We had some COVID issues this year. We were snake bit. I don't want to hear this. If I hear snake bit with injuries one more time from these Boston media people, I'm going to lose my damn mind. So unfortunately, I see it playing out the exact same way you do, is that because even without Jaylen Brown, just having Jason Tatum is so much better than whoever the Hornets or the Pacers will throw out there is going to be. So that that team will stink, and it'll be in Boston. So they'll beat them. And then I would imagine they'd get crushed by Philadelphia. It's the most ideal matchup for them of those top 3 teams in the East.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like, saying that it's the least smelly piece of poop you're going to, sniff.
Yeah. What would they do?
What are they going to do with Joe?
Yeah. Robert Williams, the last time he played against Joel Embiid, looked like a child. And
no,
Embiid has that ability.
He'll put up Wilt Chamberlain-esque numbers against the Celtics.
There's very few guys in this league that can stand next to Joel Embiid and say, I can, contain you. Forget shutting him down.
Well, how there's teams every year who get into the playoffs. I think a lot of people said this about the Blazers last year. It's like, oh, well, no one wants to see the Blazers get in. And, they took a game off the Lakers. The Celtics are not that team where everybody's like, no. Everybody would be like, okay, yeah, we're playing the Celtics. Awesome. They don't want to be here anyways. They've been, basically the last 2 months of the season, they've waved the white flag. So they're not scaring anybody. But I see it pretty much the same way as you, Sap. They lose to the Wizards. I actually think there's a chance they get routed by the Wizards. And then they beat the Pacers who will defeat the Hornets. So that's how we see it playing out. And so that would seed the Wizards at 7. who would then play Brooklyn as the 2 seed, and then it would seed the Celtics at 8, who, as we mentioned, would play Philadelphia as the 1 seed. And the 6 seed is Miami, and they would play. They're all set to play the Nets. Sorry, the Bucks in the first round, and the 4-5 are the Knicks and Hawks.
Yep.
So that's the situation.
Those are set.
Those are all set in the East, and so now let's take a look at West. Sap, your Lakers are taking on the Warriors. Not the exact same situation as the Celtics and Wizards, but the Warriors are, like the Wizards, pretty hot right now. The Lakers, understandably, not coming into this game with a crazy winning streak or anything like that because their best players just came back. LeBron played the other night as they tried to stave off the Blazers to get back to that 6 seed, but the Blazers blew out Denver, who didn't really care about that game at all. And so the Lakers are in this situation playing Golden State. They will host the game at the Staples Center. In a one-off situation, I get why you might be concerned about this, Sap, because of Steph Curry. Are you concerned about it?
Not really, because I think the Lakers and the Clippers are the two teams best equipped to at least slow down Steph Curry, because they play tremendous perimeter defense, and the Lakers have a lot of different bodies that they could throw at Steph. Look, Steph's going to go out and get 30, 35 points, on a bad night. What else does Golden State have to help him? In addition, is Andrew Wiggins going to step up? I don't really count on him. Draymond's a fantastic player, but he's not going to score for you.
I think he averaged 6 points a game this year.
Yeah, I mean, but he'll rebound, he'll pass, he'll defend, he'll do everything but score. But Steph's going to have to put up 45. I don't think he's going to do that. 3 games this year, Steph averaged 23 a game against the Lakers, which is one of his lower numbers against any team, and he shot 35% from 3.
10 points below his average.
Yeah, because they have a lot of bodies they can throw at him. They can start off with Schroeder. They can put KCP out there. Caruso can chase him around for a while. Look, and they're just big. Like, you're not going to get easy baskets against the Lakers because their front court is humongous. So I think that the Lakers should be able to handle them. They've won 5 in a row. Golden State's playing really good. I should say Steph's playing at a otherworldly level. They've won 8 out of 9. So this is a sexy matchup, right? I mean, we look in the East and go, Charlotte and Indiana.
Oh, the NBA loves
who the hell wants to watch? Oh, this is great. And I think the Lakers win and be the 7 seed and then play Phoenix, and then things open up for them because then they're in the same half with Phoenix, Denver, and Portland. Get ready to put the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals without much sweating.
Yeah. The one-off nature of it is what makes it interesting, in that if the NBA playoffs were like the NCAA tournament, the Warriors would be that sort of sexy sleeper pick, because when you have a guy who can, erupt for 40, 50, 60 points in a game like Steph Curry is fully capable of, it gives you a chance to win a single game on any given night. Now, it's not that. It's a 7-game format once you get into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So the Warriors will lose in the first round if they're able to get there. The Lakers, like you said, they are equipped. They're excellent defensively when they're healthy. They are equipped to handle sort of Steph Curry. The problem with the Warriors is just that they don't have a secondary scorer. Wiggins comes and goes. Draymond can't really score. I like Juan Toscano-Anderson, but he was playing in the Mexican League a couple years ago for a reason. They're not that good of a roster outside of Curry, really.
Jordan Bell, your Oregon guy.
Yeah, not helping with scoring.
No.
The Lakers should win this game. They're at home. They are, I believe, fully healthy.
They are.
I can't see rust being an issue, even though because LeBron's such a veteran that rust shouldn't matter to him. AD again has been around the block, dealt with injuries before. I think he'll be fine. I actually think that he's going to pose the bigger problem for the Warriors. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with him. With AD,
even Drummond. I mean, Drummond's a big guy, and
they're huge. You're right. The front court's massive.
They're enormous. I mean, and then they really want to go big. They can put LeBron back in the backcourt, a 6'9" point guard with gigantic guys. I mean,
they can put Morris at the 3 if they even want to.
They have a lot of versatility. I mean, LeBron allows them to be very versatile because he can play anywhere. But yeah, I mean, I think the Golden State, if they can get in as the 8 seed, they would play Utah. They'll scare them. I mean, Steph can win 1 or 2 games in a 7-game series.
He can, but their path their path is the only way they win games is if Steph goes bananas.
Yeah.
The Lakers, the good teams, the teams that have championship aspirations, have multiple ways to win a game.
Sure.
The Warriors can only win a game when Steph goes bananas.
Yeah, I mean, this is so different than any other time in his career. Obviously, when Durant and Clay were there, it was kind of like, it's your turn tonight. You win the game. I'll take it easy. But even when he had Clay there, now you had that running mate that you could defer to. And I think we forget how great Klay Thompson has been in his career. And that's why I think Golden State, when he comes back next year, if he's 90% of what he normally was, they're building something there in Golden State where they'll contend again, although not as dominant as they were in going to the finals 5 straight years. But yeah, they could certainly scare someone. And again,
it helps not to have a guy get quadruple teamed like Steph Curry is
it's
at
just,
half court. By the way,
it's amazing. It really is. I mean, and you're looking at it going, you know what? It's not a bad idea, because the alternative is someone else just hits a layup. He's chucking up threes from 40 feet and hitting them, especially if there's any.
And knowing the guys in the Warriors, they might miss the layup.
They could, yeah. I mean, Draymond is such a great passer. He's probably looking for. And Andrew Wiggins is one of those guys that just, there's games he looks like the former first pick in the draft, and a lot of other games where he looks disinterested. So, but the top of the West, the way the seedings are, those teams are all flawed, right? Utah, Phoenix, Denver.
Sure.
Those teams can all be had.
I've said this for a while, Sap, that I don't think the path is nearly as hard for the Lakers as people are making it out to be.
Right.
That them being in this, actually, it might be advantageous that they're in this play-in scenario, because it gets them into a good bracket. They're better than Phoenix, clearly, to me. They're better than Utah, clearly, to me, especially without Murray. So I think the Lakers are in pretty good shape here. I wouldn't worry about them being this low seed. It's very deceptive, and purely because of injuries. And they're healthy now. So yeah, they should beat the Warriors. I do think Steph will probably play well, but I think the Lakers should win that one handily. The 9-10, not nearly as sexy of a matchup as we go to the Southwest of the United States. The Memphis Grizzlies are the 9. They'll be hosting the 10 San Antonio Spurs. I do think most people expect Memphis to win this game, but I think San Antonio is going to end up winning this.
There's an upset special, because I look at San Antonio's 2-10, their last 12. I mean,
it's a one-off. The one-off nature of it.
It's a one-off, and you still got Popovich on the sideline. I mean, that doesn't hurt. You got DeMar DeRozan, who can go out and put up 35 points.
Playing for a contract. DeMar DeRozan's playing for a contract. Right. He's a free agent this season. So I think he's going to be really motivated to have a good game. I like the defensive guards on San Antonio, White, and I'm forgetting the other kid's name from Miami. I don't remember what it is. But DeJounte Murray, that's what it is.
DeJounte Murray, yeah.
I think they're both talented and good defensively, so I think they could slow down Morant a little bit. Morant is really reliant on driving the ball to the basket. He's excellent at it, but if you take that away, he's not an accomplished jump shooter yet in his career, and I'm sure he'll get there. I just don't see that big of a difference between these two teams, so I'll go to the veterans who have been around the league and the veteran coach in a one-off, and then I think that the Warriors would take care of whoever wins this game.
So you have the Lakers 7, Warriors 8.
Yeah. What do you see in terms of this Grizzlies Spurs game?
I don't. I like Memphis. They've been playing really well. They've won 5 out of 7. Ja Morant could develop into a Westbrook type player. He's got that type of athleticism, and I think
he reminds me of John Wall a
lot. Yeah, still not an accomplished shooter, but does a lot of other things. Very athletic. So, and Jaren Jackson, since he's come back, is playing at a really high level. If he can start hitting his threes, I think that's going to help Memphis out. They're a tough-minded team. They gave Golden State a run for it on Sunday, and then Steph happened. So, yeah, I would go Memphis only because they're playing better. But I don't think either one of those teams could beat Golden State. Like, I think it's going to be Lakers, Golden State in the 7-8 slots. I feel really comfortable about that.
Yeah, it does seem like in terms of the rest of the pack that they are pretty clearly separated themselves as the two of the best teams in that play-in tournament. Whereas in the East, I mean, they're kind of all muddled together. I think, most people would say right now the Wizards are playing the best, so they might put the Wizards at 1. but some people might argue the Celtics, but the Pacers and the Hornets aren't that far behind either. Those teams are all jockeying for position, by the way, the last month of the season, switching up which seed they were, the Wizards,
Yeah.
Pacers, and Hornets. For like the last several weeks, they had all altered position. The Hornets were ahead of the Celtics like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and then the injuries really started to take their toll. I mean, if they had LaMelo Ball healthy the entire season and Gordon Hayward, I think that they may have been in play for a 6 seed, although I still think Miami's better than them. But yeah, they would have represented themselves a little bit better. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, the ratings will be highest for LeBron and Steph Curry. We're talking about the two. Can we call them the two biggest stars in the league? I mean, obviously LeBron's the biggest star in the league. I think Steph's probably the second biggest star, and also
him or Durant.
Him or Durant. Steph's just more likable and
much more likable. Yeah,
right. And I think that Steph has impacted the game more than anybody on the court. You know, you maybe go back to like Wilt Chamberlain on the court, not in the way the game is played. Has been impacted incredibly by Steph Curry. So we're talking about the two most influential players of the last 15 years. We know what LeBron means to the league, making it mobile and the business that he's brought in and the way he wins. And Steph is obviously an all-time great player. So this is going to be a fun matchup.
You're getting a 1-game elimination sort of thing. I mean, it's not fully elimination, but right. You know what I'm saying? Between two guys who've won multiple MVPs. Each. 6
altogether, yeah. So, 6 altogether in 7 championships. And yeah,
it's pretty awesome to see that for a high stakes 1-game situation. So yeah, I would expect it'll get good ratings, and I think it'll be a really interesting game. The interesting thing about the play-ins this year is that it does feature teams, the 2 legacy teams in the Celtics and the Lakers, who most people didn't think would or should be here. Even despite the injuries, I don't think a lot of people were expecting the Lakers to end up in this play-in tournament. Like I said, I don't think it's ultimately going to matter because I think it actually is advantageous to them. And I would prefer the rest of Davis and LeBron and being in this situation towards them having a higher seed, but not having rest.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, LeBron's looked good in his 2 games back. Anthony Davis is starting to look like Anthony Davis, and they're starting to work well together with Andre Drummond, which gives them a humongous front court. And LeBron, again, he's been dealing with the right ankle sprain, the high ankle sprain, but he's a left-footed jumper, so at least that's not going to impact him all that much. It may impact him more on the defensive end, and he's played elite defense this year. He sets the tone defensively, although Anthony Davis is the better defensive player at this stage in their careers. When your best player is engaged defensively, it trickles down through the entire roster.
Right.
So I think that he's going to be just fine. And, it's going to come down to those secondary players. How's Schroeder? How's KCP? What other contributions? I mean, it's kind of jarring that you don't see Montrezl Harrell even playing. He was a big free agent signing in the offseason, and he's getting a lot of DNP CDs, which is like, are they just saving him for the postseason? Or
and he had a tough postseason last year, so maybe he deals with like fatigue or doesn't, because he's played worse down the stretch here, and he was really bad for the Clippers in the postseason last year. Maybe he becomes disengaged. I don't know what the deal is with him, but I like him as a player because I think he brings a lot of energy. He kind of reminds me of Kenneth Faried,
exactly.
On the Nuggets when they had some pretty good teams there. Him not playing they did sign him for good money. I mean, they got him a little bit cheaper than what market value would have said, but they made a point of trying to sign him. Charlotte really offered him more money, and he took less to go to the Lakers.
And you never know. Maybe they're just load managing him down the stretch to say, here's the last 5 games, take it easy. Maybe you don't even have to play in that play-in tournament game, and then we'll get you ready for the playoffs, which I just want to run this by you real quickly before we wrap up. And I want to see what you think of this. The weekend was bizarre because you had the Clippers losing to Houston and Oklahoma City, the 2 worst teams in the league.
On purpose.
They were on tanking, right? They didn't want to get in the same bracket as the Lakers. Denver tanked the last game because if they had beaten Portland, then Denver would be the 3 seed, which they were anyway because the Clippers lost. But then the Lakers would have been the 6th seed. So both Denver and the Clippers, the 3rd and 4th seeds in the West, did not want to play the Lakers, and rightfully so. Meanwhile, you had, Utah trying to be the 1 seed, and it it was kind of a weird weekend.
The Suns got screwed. That's the biggest loser of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the Suns were the team that was pretty earnest all year, right? I mean, just kept going out there and playing, and they didn't really load manage their three top players, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. Would you do this where the teams could pick who they play in the playoffs? So Utah,
yes, I love that,
is the 1 seed in the West. They can pick whoever they want to play. So what I would do is I take the first 4 seeds. They would choose who they play. So it's not just the top seed. So Utah would pick from the 5, 6, 7, 8. Once we get to that,
right?
And they could pick whoever. And of course, the 4 seed would get stuck with the Lakers. Like that's been bandied out there. So now you'd have a really interesting stretch in the season. I mean, what the Clippers did,
it makes the regular season matter more, right? Because it gives an extra advantage to the teams who seed higher.
Yeah, and I know it's a turnoff what the Clippers did. I mean, in the end, if they win the championship because they avoided the Lakers, then ends justify the means, and that's what you do. I mean, here's the thing: people were like apoplectic about what the Clippers did over the weekend, but teams load manage all year, and no one seems to have a problem with that. And then finally, the final weekend of the year, we're all upset because it looked like the Clippers tanked. Like
it's also because of who they lost to, right?
They lost to essentially G League teams,
right?
Right. I mean, so
it's pretty obvious what they were doing was.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like in Scene in Raging Bull when Jake LaMotta is supposed to toss the fight, and he's just standing on the ropes, like the guy's hitting him. He's like, "That's the best you got. Like, just knock me out. I'm trying to lose the fight." And the other fighter was so bad he couldn't knock him out. And
but I think that's a good idea, Sap. Because listen, we've talked about this for almost a whole year of doing this show. The NBA needs to find a way to make the regular season more meaningful, and I think that's a good way to do it. Because like this year again, like it's kind of like the Suns have had a great season. They're going to get knocked out in the first round, and it's going to look like their season sucked. I mean, they're not going to beat the Lakers. I saw the ESPN preview. They do, what's the ceiling for these teams? And they had Utah and Sun and Phoenix as winning the championship. They're just Utah and Phoenix. They're not winning the title. Neither one of them is going to win the championship. It's almost ridiculous to say it. Their record is good. They're good regular season teams. They're not going to sniff the championship.
No, this is the Atlanta Hawks from 6 years ago. Won over 60 games at 4 All-Stars, and LeBron swept them in the conference finals. Like
people get infatuated with the seeding. The seeding doesn't really matter so much, especially because the regular season's taking on less meaning and teams are doing load management. It really does not matter nearly as much as it used to.
And the NBA is pretty good at adjusting, right? I mean, this play-in tournament, say what you want, it seems like to be successful. It was last year because you had to. Now you bring the
Wizards, Sap, to actually play interesting games down the stretch versus in past seasons they may have just folded it in.
Yeah, and that was great. And you saw Russell Westbrook, other than Steph Curry the last 6 weeks, he was the most intriguing story in the league, because he's just averaged a triple-double for the whole year. But 23, 13, and 13 over the last 6 weeks of the season, that's incredible. But yeah, I give them credit for doing that. But maybe that's an option where the first seeded team in the East, Philadelphia, pick who you want to play. So they say, okay, we want the Celtics or whatever.
Right, because should it be the 2 seed Suns that really are the ones that get screwed? That's not really how it should work.
No,
and I feel bad for Chris Paul because all these accolades and stuff, and they're going to lose to the Lakers. I just don't see how they would beat them.
No, I don't. I mean, how are they going to? I mean, DeAndre Ayton's a nice player. How's he dealing with Anthony Davis? And I keep bringing up Drummond because Drummond is a guy who can go get you 15 and 10 pretty regularly. And who the hell is covering LeBron James? I mean, like seriously, like who is in his? He's going to just go to the basket at will, which he normally does anyway. But
Utah can't match up with the Lakers.
No.
So I felt this way all along. I think you felt this way too. There's 5 teams that could win it. Mm-hmm. It's the 2 LA teams, and it's the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm even starting to shy a little bit away from Philadelphia, even though they're the 1 seed. I just don't know that they have the offensive horses to get it done.
They should have a cakewalk to the conference finals, though, because
based on their
they're
seeding.
based on their seeding, because they're not even. I mean, their seeding is going to be probably Knicks, Atlanta, Celtics. I mean, if they can't beat two of those three teams, then they shouldn't be in the playoffs.
No, that one seed was paramount in the Eastern Conference.
Right. Whereas the other half of the bracket, you're talking Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and then potentially Washington and Miami. That's pretty tough. I mean, again, players like Russell Westbrook and Jimmy Butler, I've linked on a 180 on some of these guys, but you get my point. Those guys at least are going to show up and bust their ass to beat you, right? There's going to be, and what the Knicks have done and what Atlanta's done, those teams are going to be all in.
But that's what kind of scares me about Philly. I don't know that Simmons is capable of that. I've seen Embiid shrink in the playoffs too.
I think oftentimes though, Jed, it's because he's out of shape.
Yeah.
And he appears to be in better shape. Maybe that injury was a blessing in disguise. May have cost him the MVP, but give him some rest mid-season so that he's got more in the tank. When he's right, he's probably one of the 3 or 4 most unstoppable forces in the league. I still think Durant's the cheat code because you can't do anything against him. He scores at will. But Embiid's an impossible matchup. Yeah, no, if there's any of those 5 teams, Milwaukee still I'm concerned with because Giannis doesn't elevate in the postseason, but I think Drew Holiday is going to be enough to really get them over the top. But you know what is over the top? Losing to Brooklyn in the second round. That'll
be a war, that series.
That's going to be a really good series because Milwaukee matches up with them because they've got size.
Yeah, Milwaukee's got a real bitch of a road to the finals. I mean, they're going to have to beat Miami, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia. I mean, that is a tall mountain to climb.
Yeah, and then waiting for them in the finals would be
the Lakers,
presumably the Lakers. Yeah, right. I mean that's not easy. You're gonna have to beat essentially 3 of the 4 other best teams in basketball.
If the Bucks do it, Giannis's stock gets
way
super
up.
elevated because
way
of that
up.
road.
He moves into my top 30 at that point because he would have had 2 MVPs and a championship and a defensive player of the year. But he has to obviously do this with the rest of his team. And I'm not. Brooklyn still looks like the prohibitive favorite in the Eastern Conference, but Milwaukee and Philadelphia will pose problems because they both play defense.
Yeah, we might do this when we do our playoff preview, Sep. I think if you were power ranking the toughest roads to get to the finals, Milwaukee might have the
toughest
path.
one. Yeah, because of Miami too. How's that for a first round matchup? You lost to them last year.
That's the last team I think they'll beat them. It's the last team they wanted to see in the first round.
But that's going to be a 6 or 7 game series, and it's not going to be easy.
They must be so disappointed in the Celtics for pissing away that 6th seed. Yeah. They were probably thinking, "Oh, we can crush this team, no problem."
Yeah, exactly. Now we got to deal with Jimmy Butler and, as Kendrick Perkins calls them, them goons from Dade County
South
or wherever
Beach,
they're from,
from
South
County,
Beach.
Yeah,
yeah, because they're well coached, and Adebayo's a burgeoning superstar, and then you've got sharpshooters all over the place. Yeah, and guys that even a guy like Iguodala, I mean, he's not the player he used to be, but he's not going to shrink in big moments.
He's won titles. Ariza's won titles.
Yeah, these are tough-minded guys. That more players like that is what the Celtics need, right? Those veteran guys that when it comes to a big playoff game, they're not going to panic and they're going to be leaders on the team. The Celtics don't have that.
Not Grant Williams.
No, not Grant Williams. Your least valuable player in the league.
Yeah, so it's fun. I mean, this sort of gives the collegiate feel. This play-in tournament. The Wizards are like that team that won their conference tournament and snuck in. They got really hot, and you're like, oh crap, I don't want to play this team. So we'll see how it plays out. Celtics, Wizards tonight. I think the Pacers and Hornets are before that game. The Celtics and Wizards are at 9. Pacers and Hornets are, I think, at 6-ish.
6:30.
And then tomorrow, so Wednesday. We see the Western Conference play-in tournament with the Lakers and the Warriors having I think that's a 10 o'clock game. That's a late
10 o'clock game. That's the marquee game. And I know people on the East Coast are like, oh, we got to stay up late to watch basketball. Do what I do often, take a nap.
Yep, I will be watching. And then the Grizzlies Spurs, the less probably the least exciting of the 3 games of the 4 games.
That could, watching San Antonio, Memphis may put you to sleep. And then you wake up in time to watch the Lakers Golden State.
Yeah, because at least, I get Morant's exciting. LaMelo Ball is exciting for the Hornets. But, yeah, listen, the marquee matchups are obviously the 7-8s, as we've seen. It's too bad that the Grizzlies couldn't be playing the Pelicans because that would be a much more exciting matchup. But as we said in our last podcast, Stan Van Gundy tied for worst coach of the year. So they have.
Yes.
I can't believe that they finished below some of these teams.
San Antonio went 2-10 their last 12. They were basically begging New Orleans to get in, and then Zion got hurt. And from last time we checked, Stan Van Gundy was still coaching New Orleans.
Yeah, how much more fun would it be if they were in it? It would be a lot more intriguing, right?
Absolutely.
Even like the Kings would be more fun. The Spurs, it's so boring. I know I picked them to win, but it's not like they're an exciting team.
No. Even when they were winning championships, they weren't very exciting. They
That's
were damn
just the
good,
way
though.
they won it down,
Absolutely.
down there in San Antonio.
Grilled chicken over salad.
Yeah. All right. So that's the play-in tournament. We will be updating you guys with the results. Obviously, I'm excited to see it this year. The NBA is committed to this being a part of the future of the league, and it's here to stay. So get used to it, and we'll see how it plays out. Sap, I know that you're looking forward to it, and you have anything special in terms of good luck charm for the Lakers game?
No, I usually don't go there till it gets deeper into the playoffs.
Okay.
In 2016, they were down 3-1 before game 5. I got a meatball parm sub. They won, so I had to get a meatball parm sub before game 6 and before game 7, and they won those games. So that was my lucky charm back in 2016. I assume LeBron's going to do what LeBron generally does, which is get to the finals. But this could be a tough road, so I'll start thinking of things I have to eat. Certain. That's really where it comes to, because I'm very food driven. So if I eat something and he has a big game, I'll have to do it again.
Good idea. Here's my last prediction, Sap. If the Lakers lose to the Warriors and play the winner of the Grizzlies-Spurs game, the Lakers will win by the widest margin in NBA history of a single game. That's my prediction.
Like a 70-point win?
70 plus they will win by in that game.
Okay.
And LeBron will put up, 50. That's my prediction. I do think they're going to beat the Warriors, but if they don't, they will blow the hell out of either of that Grizzlies or Spurs team. So don't worry about them not qualifying if you're a Lakers.
that would not be good if they didn't qualify. But you know what? Phoenix would be quite relieved, right? If
the
Lakers were now the
whole
8th
Western
seed.
Conference would be
that whole half of the bracket would go, woof, we dodged that bullet.
Yeah.
But then you're dealing with Steph, and look, Steph's ridiculous, but the Lakers are a better team than Golden State because they have LeBron, Anthony Davis, and all of those players, and Steph is kind of dragging his team by himself, doing an incredible job.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented as always by Full Press Coverage. Thanks everybody for listening. If you want to find the podcasts and you haven't found it already, I don't know how you'd be listening, but it's on everywhere podcasts are. Find us on iTunes. Just type in the full name of the show. You can find us on YouTube by typing in youtube.com/JetStryer. And we always tweet out the links to the show. Sap's Twitter is @JohnSap25, JOHNSAP25. And mine is @JetStryer, JETSTRIAR. Check it out there. Check out the audio version, whatever, floats your boat. Sap, we'll be talking about the play-in games and give a rest of the playoff preview later in the week. So I will see you then.